wishing on my bathroom floor. This kind of love got me wishing that I could be more. I'll change my hair, change my clothes. Girl, if you told me, who knows what I'd do to be the perfect boy for you. If you want it, I got it. Baby, I'm whatever you want till I'm not it. Hate myself till I can't stop crying. You're lying when you say I'm enough. I know. I hate wishing I was different. Look at me like a kid, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. You get sick when you see me. Is my outfit displeasing? Cause I brought another one just in case. I changed my hair, changed my clothes. Girl, if you told me my nose was too big, I'd cut it off just like this. If you want it, I got it. Baby, I'm whatever you want till I'm not it. Hate myself till I can't stop crying. You're lying when you say I'm enough. I know. Yeah, I got it. Baby, I'm whatever you want till I'm not it. Hate myself and I can't stop crying. You're lying when you say I'm enough. I know.
Well, it's been a long time since you left. I've been thinking quite a lot about the things that you said. We were sitting on the beach talking about all your regrets. I'll admit I was relieved when you didn't say this is one. And I know I'm much too restless, reeling all my expectations. Work on building up my patience. Too much, it's too much, too much. Progress, are you happy? Are you focused? I'm pissed off. Said, why is that? I hate that you ask, cause I haven't figured it out myself. And I'm standing in a boiling shower, trying to slow my racing pulse. I try to breathe, but I can't seem to stop my trembling hands from shaking. And I know it's been a while since I broke. I've been thinking quite a lot about the time that we spoke. I was laying in my bed, face first in my phone, and you told me over text that you think you'd rather be alone. And I know I'm much too invested, reeling my sense of second guessing, forget my regrets and finally gonna say. But I'm too fucking tired of getting in bed, so I'm laying on the floor in the carpet instead. And I'm reading my phone and the lies of my friends I met.
and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Review. I'm your host, Dylan, aka So-Called Designs. Unfortunately, my co-host, Josh, aka Junktown, is not in studio with us tonight, but no matter, we have a special guest, and honestly, I don't know if you guys have been either under a rock or don't really know what this game is, but that's ridiculous, especially if you don't know, if you're in the editor side of any sort of moto stuff, specifically video game related. This guy has put out multiple insanely well done projects such as Sim 1 the movie and Sim 2 the movie, garnering tens of thousands of views across both of them. He is also a real life moto editor. It is none other than HOLTEZY. How are you doing tonight, man?
We're doing good. Happy to do this. Ready to critique some edits, get to see what some people are creating, and just honestly happy to share a little bit of knowledge and stuff that I've learned throughout this process.
Absolutely, man. Well, I can't think of a person that's better to give feedback on edits. I've been watching your content for a very long time, and I'm sure people inside of the MX Bikes world are more than happy to have their feedback given to them by yourself. And man, okay. Well, I mean, when we have a special guest on, we always like to start off the top of the show with how you kind of got started in editing and how you kind of fell in love with the game, or like simulator games, specifically MX Sim.
Yeah, so I basically just started editing when I was 14 years old in like grade 9. I was playing like a lot of Fortnite, a lot of Apex Legends, and I found it intriguing to take my clips and then just make them into little montages. So I did that for about a year and a half. Basically, I just edit Fortnite videos and Apex videos, and I wasn't very good at it. Also, just being really young, I think at a young age there's a point where you can't really grow until you kind of like learn a little bit more, learn to actually discover and try new stuff. So did that for a bit. Then I started playing MX Sim. I got a proper computer, so I was able to get that. And I just thought, well, there's this game you can make edits in. Might as well start with that. I think, and basically just been making edits since. I think one of the strong suits in my editing is my flow of my edits and how well it can be timed to the music. Coming off of like Fortnite and Apex edits where you have to time a kill to the beat drop of the song, it became like natural to me that at this part of the clip, I need to have the writer here. At this part of the song, I need to have the clip finish. So I really am proud and like believe a lot that my flow is like really good, and even something that I can take into like real life stuff. So yeah, just even things from different games have helped me with like editing and filming and all that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I said before, your content is incredible. I remember watching, shameless plug to, I'm sure you know this guy, Kellen Brower. I mean, it's hard to not know, the Start Your Systems guys. I remember watching all of like the RF series and, him talking about even just that one large project, Sim 1, coming out and how incredible that was, and it honestly inspired me to start making MX Bikes edits. So I owe you just at least an ounce of credit to garnering a little bit of inspiration for myself to start creating high quality content.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of look back at it. I think it was 15 or 16 when I made that, and
holy crap.
Yeah, I was pretty young, and being able to like put together a 53-minute film like within, I believe, like 2-3 months while still having like juggle school. It was pretty cool, honestly. Like I can kind of look at that in my career. Like whenever I'm talking to people, I can be like, yeah, I made this kind of film. Yeah, it was in a video game, but it still like took time, took a concept, took a long, like I had to make this video long. It wasn't just a 10-minute spiel. So
no,
it's pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. Like that was film is what I would describe that as, because it was, wow, absolutely incredible. Well, I know folks are kind of chomping at the bit here to get into the content, or the meat and the potatoes of this show. So we will kick it over. We've got our first edit, and honestly, I don't know what happened to this guy. There was rumors that he was joining the paratroopers, and kind of just set off to do some military stuff, but it's a good homie of mine. I don't know if we call each other friends, but I do have a lot of respect for this guy. His name's Seawalk. He's been making videos for MX Bikes for a while now. Was featured on the big, kind of like edit contest last year in the top 5 along with myself. But I'm glad that he's coming back to making content again. Seawalk. So we've got the comeback. It's 2 minutes 43 seconds. I also shared my screen with you in Discord just so you can kind of follow along. So, yeah, you're not, 10 seconds behind or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome.
Right, like them.
Like the cross dissolved there. Hell yeah, man.
That was very good, actually. Yeah. Was Steve Luck the one who won the what's it called? What was the Valor competition they did?
Documoto? No,
Okay,
that Shady Wadey was the guy that
was. Okay.
But he was in the top 5. He was honorable mention.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty good. That's one of the better bikes edits for sure out there. One of the things I'm really picky on in edits, and like I know coming from sim, I've tried to make a bikes edit before. I got 30 seconds in before I stopped. I hate the camera system of bikes, having to control your camera with a controller. I think that's way harder than it is in sim. So whenever I see a key cam, whether it's a little bit shaky or a little bit it's not as consistent, I gotta remember that it's a lot harder, in my opinion, to make those key cams. But like the colors are good. Is Seawalk in the chat?
Yeah, Seawalk's in chat.
Yeah. Do you use? So I can tell you're using reshade. Do you use ambient light at all? I know there's a effect in reshade called ambient light, and your edit has a bit of kind of like it's got a bit of like a color to it. It's like a little bit of a washed out kind of like orangey pink look. And I think it hinders the look of the edit a little bit. It just makes everything a little bit lighter. I know like a while ago I would use ambient light and stuff. I thought it was a cool kind of like colored effect you can put on. Um, but I had some people say it might not look the greatest for edits, maybe in still images like screenshots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he has used that, but that has a little bit of I think a little bit of like a little bit of a washed out colored look. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you see what I mean. Like right there on the dirt, you can see there's like it's got a little bit of a pink hue to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one of the things I maybe like try and stay away from because I definitely like remember using ambient light a few times, and although I thought it was cool, like some people told me that it kind of has a weird look. It almost kind of makes the clip look cheap. Other than that, I mean, actually the edit was really good. The clips were good. Timing was good. Yeah, no real big complaints other than that just one that little reshade thing.
Yeah, man. So I kind of wanted to just like piggyback off of that. One thing that I want to talk about is the camera work. And Seawalk has a style, and there's actually another guy that we've seen before that has a very similar style of shooting. And I think the one thing that Seawalk brings to the table each time that he makes an edit is a lot of variety in his shots. So, you know, he spends a lot of time like being thoughtful of, you know, progressing through a lap and also making sure that his oh man, what is it? Like going in and out, like tight and wide shots versus, you know, just the standard like follow cam, or not follow cam, but like rider tracking, and always staying at one kind of specific location or one specific angle. The one thing that drives me a little crazy, and hearing that it's easier in sim to like key up shots or some semblance of that, is, and I've spoken about this before, is when you're filming stuff, I really am kind of taken out of that immersion when you see very like quick motion or fast motion in the camera, whether it be, you know, up, down, or left, right, trying to follow the rider. And yes, I understand that it's from a standpoint of, okay, if this is filmed from a static location, it makes sense because that would be somebody trying to track the rider with the camera. But when you see drone footage doing that, or like any sort of like rider tracking, and that camera adjusts right to left or up and down rapidly, it can be a little jarring. Let's see if I can find a clip that has it. And the only reason
I do know you're kind of talking about. There's a few clips where like he was kind of tracking through a corner. You can tell it wasn't really a linear track. It was broken up a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, I just take that with a little bit of grain of salt. Just because I know like that. I mean, for me when I was working on it, it's a lot easier to make something more consistent with sim keycams than it is with a camera system. But I mean, it can be avoided. Like Murray, for example, Murray's shots never really have Murray films. That is, his shots are always pretty consistent, linear. You don't really have any really jaggedy movement at all in the camera, so it can be done. But yeah, I noticed what you meant there. Noticed that a little bit.
Yeah. Other than that, like his pacing is always super good. And one thing that I really love about Seawalk, man, it's such a breath of fresh air, is he has a really good song selection. You know, I'm so tired of hearing the same top 5 either TikTok hip hop songs or kind of this weird like trendy shit. Man, it's and it's nothing against it. Like, it's a popular song, like whatever. People like it. It's fine. But he brings a lot to the table. It's like, hey, he went and found a deep cut. Like, this song, I've never heard it before. And it was a cool song to put to a moto edit. It kind of fit the vibe. It fit, you know, kind of going back to what you were saying with the, you know, the brightness of everything, the riding clips, everything felt like it was very uplifting, upbeat. It fit a theme. For 2 minutes and 43 seconds, it fit a theme of, hey, I'm back. And it doesn't have to be this like super hard, you know, very and energetic style of song where it's just 808s and hip hop drums. No, like this was good. It was really well put together. And I don't know. I'm just glad he's back to making content, man. It's always good to see the homies come back and keep doing what they love to do.
Yeah. The only other note I have, and like this one is kind of based off what you would call the politics of MX bikes. I mean, since you guys have to pay for tracks, it's a little. I gotta kind of see that perspective. I'm not usually a fan of doing edits on official tracks because I mean, whenever I make my edits, I kind of have a bit of a realistic take on them, and you'll never really see like someone hogging the track themselves, with crowd in the background and banners everywhere.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you guys have to pay for your tracks. You can't just download whatever you want. So I understand that you want to actually use what you spend your money to. So that's fine. That's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is JV, Stone, and Hell Machine, they make really high quality content. But yes, I am kind of in the same boat. Like, I don't really like putting together pieces of work that are on tracks with a bunch of extra stuff. I would rather have more of a, kind of a one-off like test track or a hidden motocross track, something along those lines. But
yeah, 100%. You'll never see me make an edit on an RF supercross track or motocross track unless it's for like an RF event or something like that.
Sure. Well, anyways, Seawalk, incredible job. Keep at it, man. We want to see more.
Very good.
All right, so up next we got an MX Simulator edit by Dr. Do Racing. I haven't seen a whole lot from this guy. I don't know if you know who he is or anything about him. But
we have a little rivalry, me and Dr. Do.
Do Island, MX Simulator edit.
I heard the feedback. I'm a poser with a guitar and a choker. High nightmare, sunglasses. I made an album. They hate the track list. Leave the scene, you're ruining it. Leave the scene, you're ruining it. You sold out and it makes me sick. So leave the scene, you're ruining it. You got it easy. You're a celebrity. You got new friends and no enemies. You're no icon. You're just a parody. You might be relevant, but just barely. Leave the scene. You're ruining it. Leave the scene.
Jesus.
You sold out and it makes me sick. So leave the scene. You're ruining it. Oh, you're so ephemeral. You sold your soul straight to the devil. What for?
Does he even like play guitar?
Leave the scene, you're ruining it. Leave the scene, you're ruining it. You sold out and it makes me sick. So leave the scene, you're ruining it. The mainstream's waiting. Give them what they want now. The mainstream's waiting.
What?
What they want now. Fuck that, dude.
All right, that was fun.
All right. So, I'll start.
Yeah, go for it.
Got a few things to talk about for sure.
Okay.
First one, in any edits ever, I think it's a rule that you cannot have the first frame on an open shot. You need a proper opening to your edits. Whether that's you start off with a black screen for like a second or two, and then you start off, or you have a fade in. I don't think that the first frame of your edit has to be like an open shot. Kind of like this one is. There's no real like intro to it, even just like two to 3 seconds, the black screen, and then a pop has a more like it gets you more into the edit. The other thing I noticed in the color correction, well, two things about color correction. I wish Dr. Do would kind of make their color correction a little bit more them. If I'm not mistaken, this is just Murray's color correction from 2 years ago, and they've been using it for a while. So
Okay.
I think they need to kind of somehow make it their own. Other thing in this shot right here, like in the middle of the screen, it's kind of bright and washed out. You can go to like other shots, and in the middle of the screen, it's just like it's a little brighter. And that shot. Maybe it's not the greatest example, but like if there's one, uh, if there's one where like there's someone in the sky or whatever. All right, actually here, go back a little bit. It's like 5 seconds. Yeah, so you can see how the middle part of the screen is brighter, right? Kind of right where those rocks are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a reshade thing or something done in the software, but it looks like I don't know. It looks washed out. Looks kind of weird. It looks out of place.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and fix that. Another thing, a lot of shots they have, they're FOV, which is basically how you control how close your camera is to the rider stuff.
Sure.
Here, actually, that clip right there where they're jumping over the volcano. So just go back like 5 seconds. Yeah, this clip, in my opinion, their FOV is too high, what that means is the camera's more open up, and the rider looks too small. I think they have a lot of really high FOV shots in this edit,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy's too small, and you're not really interested because it's just a small little character pretty far away. You don't really get to see it very well. I assume these shots are taken in 100 plus FOV. Whenever I make my edits, I never really go above 80. And if I go above 80, it's for like 3 clips. So I think they need to lower their FOV down for a lot of shots. It'll make you feel more connected to the rider. Like you're actually really seeing every part of the rider.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of shots, there need to be more clips taken and need to cut down a lot of the clips. Can you skip forward like 5 seconds around-ish? Maybe 10 seconds? Here, right after this clip. So just, yeah, it should be right after this clip. This clip goes on for too long. The rider's too far away. It's not really that interesting of a clip because it takes so long for the rider to actually get close to you. So I try and take more clips where the rider's closer. They're not as far away and the clip isn't as long. In my edits, I don't have a clip last for more than 5 seconds, just because like people can get bored easily.
Mm-hmm.
If a clip starts, and especially when the rider's really far away, and you have to watch that same clip for like 7 or so seconds, you get kind of bored of it.
Sure.
And I'd maybe try and kind of find a little bit more of a flow with the song. You kind of had some parts where everybody, like with the chorus of the song, everybody was throwing whips and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But on other parts of the song, whenever it wasn't the chorus, it felt kind of like you just take a clip and you just put it wherever.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really feel like stuff matched to how like the song worked, whether it starts at this point or ends at this point. Yeah, I think that's all I really got. I'm gonna be hard on the do guys because they're hard on me. But I think they can take that. Honestly, the real thing is the thing that would make their edits a lot better, in my opinion, is if they change their reshade, because that's just Murray's from 2 years ago, and it'd be cool to see them express themselves or have a little bit more of their own concept when it comes to how the colors of their edits are.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's a big takeaway that I think, like even on the bike side, you know, I've had people reach out to me and comment on my videos like, oh, whose reshade is this? Or what's that reshade preset? And, you know, for every single time, like I've never downloaded a reshade preset or anything. Like that is your way of like showcasing your talent. Like
100%.
if I were to take, you know, Hurin's or Murray's reshade from however long ago, like it just feels disingenuous, not only to the person that put it out, but also to myself as an editor and a creator. Like that's your way of expressing yourself. So when somebody looks at, you know, whether it's a HOLTEZY edit or a so-called designs edit or a do edit, like it should look like your own stuff. Like it shouldn't look any other way. But still going on about reshade, one thing, and we talk about this on the show almost every week, and it's depth of field and how critical it is to have depth of field set up right and set up perfectly. So I think the Do guys missed the mark here on a lot of these shots, because we can see it a little bit over here, but that I'm pretty sure that's how I don't know, I could be wrong, but like the LODs in Sim work and how it renders, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't played Sim in quite a while. But there's a lot of stuff going on here where like I can still make out that this is a person, but it should be so far away, and maybe it's the FOV portion of it where I feel like the depth of field could be just a shade higher in a lot of these shots, just to help get that more. It's not a cinematic look, because I know some people don't really want to achieve that, but it helps really bring out the subject inside of your edit, adding and it, like we've said time and time again, less is more. If you have something that's super blown out and blurry in the background, that doesn't make a lot of sense for a shot like this where there's a lot going on. But even like this lighthouse and these trees where you can start to see like the textures and stuff and kind of, you know, what Sim looks like. And there's nothing against Sim, because like you can obviously figure out a way to make it look great. But and it's the same with bikes. Like you'll see this all the time where these textures, they're just not that great, and it's really hard to make it look good if you don't mess around with that depth of field. So, and that's a lot of that is it from people downloading reshade presets where there is no depth of field setting on it. Like play around with it, you know, utilize the tools that are in your toolbox, and it 100% make it better.
Yeah, for sure. And like with their clips, you can't really notice the depth of field because like their FOV is so far out. When their FOV is so far out, like the depth of field doesn't show as well. You're not gonna see it. You can either the object in the back for that shot, for example, if you're using depth of field, either the way the camera is set up, the shot is set up, either that tree in the background is not gonna be blurry or it's gonna be full blurry. There's not gonna be a middle. And that's just because the FOV is so high. When I'm making my edits, I don't want it to be super blurry. There's a point where if you have your depth of field, I can't picture the settings right now, but if it's either too high or too low, you have it so that you actually have like white circles basically.
Yep.
And like everything is so blurred out. You never want that. Never want that. You don't want to go to the point where it's so it's so blurry, it looks fake, it looks kind of corny. You want to be able to see basically how I do it, and I've been doing some sim edits of recent, so I've been messing with this. You want to be able to see like the objects in your background, but you shouldn't be able to tell like the sharpness of the edges. You don't want it super blurry, but you do want a little bit of blur there, because when you're filming with cameras, if you have your f-stop or like your depth of field high, like low, you're gonna be able to see, like you're gonna focus more on the object, and there is that blur in the background.
Yep.
So if you're going for a realistic vibe, it's important to have a little bit of blur. You don't want to overdo it though. But sometimes how you use that blur depends on how open your camera is or how closed your camera is. So
Correct.
I think for the new guys, if you want to show a little bit more of that cinematic look, you have to use a lower FOV. It's way too open.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this is the first one that I've seen from these guys. I thought it was a fun one, but definitely some constructive criticism from the sim edit god. All right, moving on.
It's fun for sure. They have some cool like fun clips and stuff. Everybody riding. I think it could be executed a little bit better.
Awesome. All right, so we're on to Kleb. So Kleb has been featured on this show quite a bit. He's pretty, I mean, for all intents and purposes, a very quality editor. His camera work, he's come a long way from when he first started submitting for this show. And just in the short amount of time with 11 weeks, I mean, it's really good. He's a really good editor. All right, so we've got Puffin' on Zooties by Zerdy Poo. Minute and 1 second.
She fight to take me no in this cat, nigga can't even see me on winds. She fight to flight, nigga in this cat. She fight to flight me no way out of
Chief out of flight, nigga can't even see me on way out of here, I'm too far in the sky. Heard me, it's ash for the dump, my ashes. Bitch so pretty, look better than Cassie. Puffin' on Zooters and she calling me daddy. Walking on shit, turn it up and not gassing. Came out the gutter, they ain't never me the swagger. Secure the bag, got a bitch, I'm a bagger. Turning it up, gotta make sure she good. Park a 2 mil in the middle of my hood. Drinking the mud I made out of the sewer. Chrome heart accessories, whatever, I'm good. A lot of these niggas, they looking the same. They copy my lingo, they biting my chain. Championship, ain't just gon' empty shit. Big breaking nature, to look at the kid. Dirty the fountain, but making the Canada, bro. Get this money like it's my religion. This could be a mad day or sad day for any of these niggas that try to compare whatever I did. Them niggas touched 100 that just off the gig. That came out the jungle to kidnap a kid. I trap out a bando, spend 10 on the crib. I look at the ocean, it's my 30
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Short and sweet.
A lot of the camera work is actually pretty good. A few things to touch on. This first shot right here, I think with his yeah, Murray just said in chat. Actually, can you go to like the first shot of the edit? I think it's, yeah, that one right there. So when I'm talking about your depth of field is too high, this is that example where everything in their background is pretty circular.
Mm-hmm.
This is just too high. It looks kind of cheesy. I'd bring it down so you can still kind of see the shape of like everything in the background. Just because like when you're filming with cameras, you have your depth of field low. You can still see what's in the background. It's just slightly blurry. It never really gets to the point that your objects are rounded and have those kind of rounded dimensions of it, like that one is. So I turn your depth of field down, for sure. And the other thing is, I think your color corrections, you got like this white glow, and it's kind of really bright. Actually, can you go to the shot of the bike in front of the race tech? It was like the first shot. Yeah, so like there's just this white kind of glow off the bike, and it doesn't look that great. Throughout the edit, there's that white glow also kind of like kind of appears, and it doesn't look the greatest. I kind of like to, when I make my edits, I like to go with a realistic feel. I had a part while I was filming the Calgary Canadian Nationals a few months ago, and I didn't have like this filter over my camera, and what it did is it made all my footage really bright, really glowy, and for a little bit I thought it was cool, but I had some friends like Steezy Films, who's a really good filmer, and he said that it's just too bright. You don't want your footage overexposed. That's not how you kind of want to film. This edit kind of made me feel that. It's just, you had some glow that was just a little bit too bright. I just pulled up reshade in an MX Simulator. I assume you guys would use the same settings as me when I go to active depth of field.
Mm-hmm.
The only two switches I use are near blur curve and far blur curve. So no, I don't even use near blur curve. I use far blur curve and hyperfocal depth. Hyperfocal depth I don't really mess around with if my how do I say this? If my FOV is really far and I want to get a little bit of kind of blur, I'll just adjust that a little bit. But I usually have my hyperfocal depth set to around 0.3, and my far blur curve, that's what I adjust whenever I want to make something more blurry or not. If I screen share, can I will you be able to put the screen on that and I can kind of show what I mean? Or is that
potentially?
If that's not something, that's all right.
Let me see. Go ahead and try it.
Yeah. This is out. If it doesn't work, that's all right.
Hold on, I'm just gonna drag it over into the other window. And
There we go. Yeah. So for example, the only two.
Oh shoot, it's not pulling
Let's
up.
come up on the stream.
Hold on. 1 second. Window capture. Here we go. All right, there we go.
Working cap. So So right here, like the reshade, active depth of field, ADOF. The only two I mess around with are this far blur curve and this hyperfocal depth. As you can tell, it's really blurry in the background. You can see like little circular objects. You don't want this.
Yep.
All I do is just adjust this bar right here to get what I want. This is a pretty good depth. I'd even go like a little bit less. There's a little glistening in the tree, so I'm just gonna turn that down a little bit. But this is like a pretty good amount of blur you want in the background. It's not circular, but you can't really tell like the sharp edges of everything. This is what I usually try to go for. If you want to like, this is kind of what I have it set as. I just mess around a little bit. I don't know if these are like default settings, but the only settings I use when I'm changing are these two right here, the far blur curve and the hyperfocal. And I very rarely touch this. I just have it set to 0.3, and I mess with the far blur whenever I need more blur or whenever I need less blur. But you shouldn't ever really be to the point where it's kind of like this. That's just too much blur. Something more around this will look kind of a little bit better.
Sure.
Because like when you're filming, you're not really ever going to get to the point where there's kind of circular dimensions. It's always going to have just a little bit of blur. And it has a little bit more of a clean, like even though blur can kind of make you feel more connected to the object, because that's the only thing in focus, you don't want too much of it, if that makes sense.
For sure. Okay, so what I will say, and I will just kind of, I agree, and you know, a lot of Kleb stuff, and I have reviewed it quite a bit in the past. We've talked about how much blur he does have in his depth of field. However, the times where, you know, this style of blur makes sense is if it's a really close up shot. So like I'm talking even tighter than this. Like that camera lens would be within a foot of this guy's helmet, and that's when you're going to start to see that big bokeh effect. But other than that, like you're really not going to see this amount of blur. Oh gosh, where's a shot that has a lot of it? Like this shot, you're really not going to see this amount of blur, at least in the way that this is shot. But if you get a really tight close-up shot, it makes sense. But I just don't think you're going to see that a whole lot throughout like an actual riding footage. That would only be like a stationary subject where you could get physically close enough to film something like that. But yeah,
I saw someone say in chat saturation can be turned down. I agree. It is pretty like vibrant. I turn it down just a little bit. It's nice to have a little bit of saturation just because it feels a little bit more lively. There's a point where it's a little bit too high. I just turn it down a tad. Though I do want to say like one cool thing about this edit, if you go to 29 seconds, the clip at 29 seconds is honestly pretty sick. You can see the grass start to rise, and it's pretty cool. But this is one of those clips where the blur kind of ruins it, I think. You can have a little bit of blur as he kind of fades away. Yeah, it should be that clip right there. This clip is sick. The grass starts to rise, but then all of a sudden it gets just too blurry there. If you turn that down a little bit, I think it'd be a much better transition. But no, that shot is actually really sick, where the camera's panning down, the grass is rising up, and you see in the background he's wheeling down the hill. That shot was actually, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And there's one thing that I have noticed, and I think it must have been like the first episode, maybe the second episode that Kleb was featured on. His camera work, I honestly, HOLTEZY, if you could have seen his camera work on episode 1 to where it is now, dude, you wouldn't even believe it's the same person editing. It's incredible how far he's come.
That's good to hear then.
But yeah, great job, Kleb. We're going to move on to the next one. And it's another MX Sim person, Shepherd Production.
Shep. Yeah, I'm very aware with this guy. He's really, really good.
I haven't seen anything from him, so I'm excited. Out of my way. MX Simulator edit. Sick. All right, can I just say something? there is one thing that Bikes has on Sim, and it's fucking sound. Jesus Christ,
Yep.
Sim sucks so much. Normally I would complain, and anybody that has watched this show before knows how much I fucking bitch about bike sounds. You have to find external fucking footage for Sim, dude. It's so bad. All right.
Yeah, like his sounds like increasingly worse just because he's got a sound mod on, so that makes the bike higher pitched, which I think for racing some people prefer it because you can hear like when you're revving out more.
Sure.
I don't use it for the fact that it's just unbearable in edits.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, I digress. Sorry.
Like I've been locked up, arms kinda stocky. Wrist on Rocky, wish a nigga try to stop me. He was same boat with the glizzy, it's track me. Make him take off like me go. In the kitchen whipping up the bricks, serving kilos. If I gotta get in your door, I pick the keto. Full of shit, bitches, boy, these hoes like A-hoes. Every day I wake up thinking about the pesos. Getting bankrolls, saying RP the bankroll. Keep the bankroll, codeine in the double cone sipping, ayy. Stevie Wonder is gonna take away my vision, ayy. 007 with that Glock, I got precision, ayy.
Ooh.
You be talking about the shit when I
That's
did it,
sick.
ayy. Free my niggas in that jam. I don't give a shit and I don't give a hoover damn. Last bitch that said I wasn't shit, she wanna let me cram. Hit it from the back, oh yes.
Holy shit.
C-Shep stuff's pretty cool. I'm gonna glaze a little bit, and then I also got a little bit of stuff I'd work on. First of all, like in my opinion, like out of any sim editors, this is like me included. He's got the most creative and unique keycams. He likes to move his camera in like a really cool way. It's kind of like it's not really realistic, some of the shots, which is probably why I don't do it. It's like sometimes I don't like it, but at the same time it's a game, so I gotta respect doing something that you maybe can't do in person unless you're a crazy drone pilot. Yeah, I think a lot of his keycams are really creative and stuff. He has good flow as well.
Are you talking about this shot here? Like that's nuts.
Yeah, yeah. There's some other shots. I'm a little critical of that shot. Funny you say. The only although I like a lot of his keycams, there's some keycams that in my opinion look weird because I like to kind of approach stuff with a little bit of a more real look.
Mm-hmm.
I usually in most of my keycams, like everything is linear. You're gonna have like a linear, like zoom, or it's gonna kind of track at a similar speed.
Sure.
Let me find it. So real quick, if you can go to like 38 seconds. In this clip, he's tripling in, and you'll see the camera kind of backs away a little bit. And to me, that just looks kind of strange. I don't know if you saw it, but
yeah,
there's a few times where the camera shifts a little bit in the clip, and it just looks a little out of place to me. Especially if it's a slow-mo shot, you won't really ever have like, if you're filming in person, you won't really have a camera pull like that quickly while remaining like a good remaining it being stable or remaining it being focused. The other clip that you talked about liking, I believe, is at 53 seconds. It's a cool clip, but he kind of like the camera kind of moves a little bit, moves backward.
Yeah.
Kind of approaches. And just like you could get rid of that. Like you could reshoot that clip without having that little like move back, and I think the clip would be better.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know he's probably like adjusted his reach rate a little bit. It's got a little bit of that kind of same when we were talking about Seawalk, has a little bit of that kind of colorish hue to it that I think kind of makes it a little more kind of washed out. For speed, he uses like when the edit looks pretty like blurry when he's moving, he uses motion blur, and I know that he uses RSMB, which is a motion blur plugin. I use that on almost all my edits too, but I think he uses a bit too much of it. There's times where like there's times in like a corner, for example, right there, or
I think you're talking about this bowl corner. Like
yeah.
you'll be able to see it in the still, which like this to me, like, okay, I will say this because we're looking at a still, and it's, first of all, YouTube compresses the dog shit out of everything, and I'll be the first person to say that. So, and I'm guessing Shep drops his frame rate from 60 to 30, which will also give you motion blur just naturally, or, well, technically not naturally, but like when you go to export, if you filmed everything in 60 and then you export it at 30, you will have motion blur. But it's a more natural way of achieving that motion blur than adding so much when you go to film, because, oh, if it looks good when I film this at 60 frames with motion blur, well, now it's going to be over exaggerated when you export in 30. But it doesn't do it justice to watch this, and like we could go frame by frame and be like, oh yeah, this is too much, because of course this is, but this is not the way that this edit is intended.
Yeah, so just leave it there for a second. Honestly, like that one isn't as bad. What I'm more talking about, because like when if you're filming with like a low shutter speed, you will kind of have that kind of speed. That one, it looks kind of worse because you've paused it, but if you're going off of like the video itself, you can't notice it as much. What I'm kind of talking about more of the high RSMB, if you go to 38 seconds, if you pause on 38 seconds, right when he's going up the lip here, so just right when he's going up the lip of that triple N, you see how it's got this weird kind of like effect around the rider, like
a force field. Yeah,
that's the kind of result of having your like too much motion blur. It's got that little force field. So it's not like with the other shot in the corner, there wasn't as much of a force field around the guy. This one's got a little bit more of that. And even in my edits, sometimes just the way the motion blur works, you're gonna have that little force field. I think it's just like a little too, you can see it a little bit too much in some clips.
Yeah. Well, and like the reason why it's amplified here is because we can see all of this motion blur on the objects around it, and then it's trying to keep this subject in focus, and that's why we're achieving this effect.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's a few shots like that, you can kind of see that force field, and it looks really weird. It's not it's not really possible to fix. Like, and a lot of times I really don't like that. Yeah, like Murray just said in chat, he kind of has it in his too. Same with me. They're my edits. I can't really get rid of them unless I don't use them. I like to use them a little bit, but it's just he's got his motion blur too high. I feel that there's a few shots where you can really, really see the force field.
Yeah.
And the only other critique I have is just an RF Supercross track. Actually, some of the lights he had, I don't know what he used to have the lights glow. That I don't know.
I want to touch on this. This is fucking sick. Yeah, the light shining through the rear wheel, like that's sick as shit. And there was one other one where he's like hitting a triple. I think it was later on. Like this shot is incredible, man. Yeah, like it's cool. It's cool for sure. But yeah, I mean, like we said before, you know, having something like this, the only time that I could see this happening would be for, like, for instance, if you were doing some semblance of like a, oh man, what like opening ceremony style of edit. But other than that, like, I don't have too much of an issue doing like a Supercross track, but outdoors for sure is not really my style. I would like to have a little bit more clean look, but again, like this, aside from like some of the film work stuff where it doesn't look a lot of realistic, like as super realistic, he had really cool, like here, you can barely see it, but that little glitch effect, like it's so subtle that you really won't notice it, but it's just enough to be like, oh wow, that was cool. That kept me interested.
Yeah, he's really creative, and like I just saw Murray in chat. So I don't think it is. I actually don't know. I know one of my friends, Vital Media, who knows a lot about this game when it comes to like code and stuff. There was a way that he was able to like somehow like connect. I don't know if it was his his graphics settings from his like graphics card, and it gave everything a little bit of a more kind of like illumination, kind of like an actual screen. I don't remember exactly how he did it. I don't know if it was. I don't want to say RTX because I don't fully know.
Well, that's
but I
right.
believe that's how he did it.
Yeah, it's ray tracing, but I don't know how the hell you get ray tracing on a game that
Yeah.
I don't even know how old Sim is. It's old. It's old,
Yeah,
but
2007. Yeah.
yeah, like there's no way it has ray tracing, but like there's a lot of really cool aspects that I enjoyed about this. Sorry, I keep
Yeah.
cutting you off, man. Like
No,
this.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You
Just
gotta talk to.
Yeah, no, just having a conversation. Like, and for whatever reason, like this to me was a really cool edit, and I enjoyed it. There was a lot of things that I would say like we already touched on, a little bit of camera work, but I thought the creativity behind it was solid. Like there was a lot of really cool shit where I'm like, damn, dude. The one last thing that I wanted to touch on was this at the end. Like, it's a great way to end an edit, and we don't see a whole lot of guys in the bikes community. Like, it just feels like, from a content perspective, I watch a ton of these every week, and very few people have learned how to end an edit properly, and Shep nailed it. Like, with the flames in the background, it's a little, I mean, it's just a shade blurry here. I would have liked to see, you know, just a little bit more, but like the flames, everything, like that's so fucking cool. Like that, it's so sick. But hell yeah, man, definitely a subscribe, and a like. That was sick. Keep it up, Shep.
Yeah, Sheps was a really good big editor. Like that before I even started playing this game back in like 2019 to 2020. He was like one of the bigger editors. We had a lot of really cool stuff. Like if you ever want to look, like when I talk about creative keyframes and keycaps and stuff, like that's who I'm talking about. He's got some really cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he came back and he made some cool edits because I kind of got inspired. Like, well, he's doing these cool things. How do I do something that's as cool? So yeah, hopefully he makes some more stuff. He hasn't made an edit in a while, but yeah, he's really good. He's really good at sim edits. He keeps me entertained for sure.
Well, and we were talking about that prior to the show about like how much content is out there from editors on the sim side versus MX bikes. Dude, I promise you, there is probably 6 people that have made an edit within the last 3 days on the bike side.
Yeah.
And not all of them are, you know, insanely high quality, but like there is a ton of content that's being pushed, and I honestly, like, normally the show is, you know, the last week, and there was none based on the last week for sim, so it's crazy. All right, up next, another show favorite, Joman. He has come an extremely long way. We talked about him last week quite a bit, about just the amount of progression from when he submitted, you know, at the start of this show 11 weeks ago versus to where he is now. But a minute and 3 seconds, test track days. Naked bike.
That was cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
The quality was actually like that's really good. Like it's high quality. Just the imaging itself. It's really good to see. Few little things. Actually, not much really. one, I just noticed it with the fade out. It kind of fades out too abrupt. Kind of want to let it kind of calm down a little bit. If you can just play the fade out a little one more time. Oh, here, can you just play with the audio?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, it kind of like, I kind of have the audio fade out a little bit more. Kind of has a little bit of a cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like really picky when it comes to how you start and end your edits,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that really kind of like transcends your mind into the edit and out of the edit.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think if to make it a little bit of a better edit, the songs really got a lot of beats, got a lot of beat drops. There's one clip where he does, I think it's like it's in a rhythm section. It's one of those longer clips. I think it's that one right there. So, with a song like, yeah. So like it's a really cool clip. If you're going with a song like that, I think you need to kind of maybe add more clips to it. It was a cool shot with the guy whipping everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't too like, camera wasn't moving a whole lot. Just when I was watching that, the clip was pretty long. I mean, you have a song that's got kind of like a short kind of few beats every now and then. It kind of feels like you can time stuff a little bit better. Like there's probably within that one clip, there's probably 2 or 3 beat drops in the song. I maybe would have done a different angle or a different perspective of him going through that rhythm section just to time the clips with the music a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like sometimes when you just make like, when you use songs like that, there's times where you'll have a beat drop of a song and it might be in the middle of a clip. Just coming from a background of like making Fortnite edits, I try and always never make sure that happens because I'm usually so picky on
Mm-hmm.
when my clip's gonna start at this part of the song, when it's gonna end at this part of the song.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a few things he can maybe take a few more clips and try to introduce those into the edit so that certain parts where there's a beat drop, he'll have a new clip start or end.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think it was really good. His like, there's like the filming, the camera work wasn't bad at all, but some people, if they have bad camera work, what can help the edit is the high quality,
Mm-hmm.
like the actual like high resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that he's got that down. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people in bikes need to get that figured out first, their
Mhm.
resolution and their high quality.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm happy to see that he's got that down, because he can honestly, if he wanted to, he could just make an edit with like no hair at all and it'll still look good just because his game looks good.
Right. And
So yeah,
one
really solid edit for sure.
one thing I want to touch on is not everybody strives to record in 4K, and don't get me wrong, like it definitely, you can see the quality between 4K resolution and 1080p, but there's a way to make 1080p look good. And
Mhm.
it's all about getting everything dialed in. So if you want something that's silky smooth, and I don't know, man, like it was kind of like the Blu-ray era, and I've touched on this before. Like when Blu-ray first started coming out, it really drove me nuts because the frame rate was so high that it didn't look real. And I feel like a lot of editors that record in 4K at a really high frame rate, it makes this game look insanely video gamey just based on the resolution. So trying to achieve something that is pleasing to the natural eye will always shine out. But anyways, touching on just kind of what we're talking about here. Okay, so this clip starts at 27 seconds and it goes to 39 seconds. So one big thing, and it's kind of an unwritten rule as far as like the way that I go about my editing process, I never really like to have any sort of clip span longer than 5 seconds if need be. And it's tough when you have these test tracks that have long rhythm sections because you want to film the whole thing. A way to get around that is having camera motion. So whether it be a drone shot that's kind of far away where you're tracking the subject throughout the rhythm section, because it keeps your eye on the subject, but also you're progressing through time. When you do a static shot like this, it's really difficult to make this look good. But an easy way to film all of this and make it look kind of interesting and fun is a technique called speed ramping. So a lot of this is in slow-mo, and you can see he's starting to do it, but I think he's either doing it manually, just with like the replay editor and bikes. It's so tough to get that right, and your speed ramps, man, it just needs to get a little bit faster. And I know because I've filmed a lot on this specific track, and these rhythm sections, so this one and then the one after the whoop section, man, it's so tough to make that look good. So either spreading that out, and HOLTEZY, you touched on it, like getting multiple angles of that rhythm section to kind of block that up or chop that up a little bit to keep your viewer engaged, because 12 seconds, in my opinion, is too long.
Yeah, I agree.
Other than that, just an audio standpoint, so like just a shameless plug, I've been a music producer since 2013. The mixing of this song was a little quiet, or this edit in general. I don't know who the artist is of this song, but bring it up, and specifically try to bring up the levels of the bike sounds, because we hear it a little bit, but it just really wasn't enough. Like I felt like I was struggling to hear it. Other than that, man, Murray had mentioned something in chat about the camera rolling. Yes, there's a lot of camera rolling, and here's the thing about camera rolls. And this is from like actual people that go to school and study film. Camera rolls are a really neat effect, but they're so unnatural because nothing like that happens in real life. Like there's really never an opportunity where the human eye is going to be looking at the horizon. So when I talk about the horizon line, I'm talking about linear lines that are like this. So this fence, the whoops, like it's really hard when you have a camera roll setting on a gimbal that, yes, you can achieve it with a gimbal, but it should be used sparingly, right? I think it's done really well in this shot here, because he does kind of like a smash cut as it goes into like planing out into a natural view. But then we see it a lot. Gosh, where is it? I think it's like coming over this triple. Yeah, see, it's
Real quick, did you notice that in that clip? Like it felt like when he was, I think it was the clip like right at the start of this clip, when he's doubling in, all of a sudden the audio gets really loud, like the bike audio.
maybe.
That's what I thought I noticed. I think that was the loudest, like that clip right there. The bike was never that loud in the rest of the edit. I don't know if I mean, I maybe don't remember, but I'm pretty sure that was like when I was watching it, that kind of like caught me off guard. I don't ever remember the rest of the edit, the bike being that loud. I might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which like it's okay to kind of have like your bike not loud if you don't want it to, but you gotta make sure that for the whole edit, your bike's gonna be that loud.
Yeah, and this is just, you know, it's one thing if you're, and like audio manipulation is something that will get you to that next level of editing. The reason why I think you're mentioning this is because of how abrupt it comes in. So like it's you in whatever program you have, you can roll that off just a little bit, just to try to, you know, make it not so abrupt at the beginning. Just roll that initial hit off on the audio side, and it'll make that fit a little bit better. But one thing that I do want to mention, so just kind of going back to this camera roll thing, like the roll setting that you have here is just a little high, because it's just too much, right? Because like if we look at this screen, this is the lateral line that we're supposed to be looking at, and it's cutting across most of the screen there.
So the rolling is just the tilt of the camera.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Sim doesn't have that, so I've never really had to Like none of my footage has really ever had mini rolls to it.
Mhm.
Though I do remember when I was making my the bikes edit, the one I never finished and never will. When I learned that there was a rolling feature, I had a little bit of fun with it. I tried not to use it a whole lot, but it was honestly a cool feature. Whenever I'm using my edits, like if I ever wanted to roll something, I'd have to do it in the software. I'd have to rotate the clip. The only time I've like ever really done that is if I'm doing like a close up of the rider with an effect on it.
Sure.
It's nothing you can really tell. It adds a little bit more depth to the effect and like what's in shot. But I've like never really ever used like a tilt or a roll for like any of my actual riding clips.
Right. And you know, it's just it's a nitpick thing that I'm talking about. Like this for all intents and purposes was shot extremely well. And the clips are cool, the quality's there. I think honestly his depth of field settings really stand out from a lot of the people that we've seen. Like a lot of this looks really
Yeah, that's how
solid.
you're supposed to use depth of field. That is a really, really good shot because you can still see the objects in the background, but you can't. It's not too blurry where the trucks are appearing as little balls, but you also can't tell the edges. That's really good background blur in my opinion. Like that's really good.
And again, less is more. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to harp too much on Gentleman. This was really solid. He definitely is deserving of all of the appreciation. Like this was really good. You're just continuing to get better, man. Keep it up. But yeah.
That was a good watch. There's a few bikes that it's out there. I kind of cringe at. That was not one of them. So take that well with his compliment. Yeah, it was a good edit for sure.
All right. On to the next one. Huey.
Huey. Yes, this is one of my good friends, Huey. He helped me actually a lot with 7-minutes. When I was just getting into them at the start of 22, Huey was kind of slowing down a little bit, but Huey's made a lot of good edits, and yeah, he's helped me a lot. So credits to Huey.
Hell yeah. Minute 47. Braden X Braden. Man, a lot of Bradens.
Yeah. Braden Tharp and Braden Carter.
Oh.
Do you see the road? I'm out to my soul and tell me the size. Whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture,
that's sick.
All of that green and yellow that drip from your eyes is telling. Tell your demise, I'm with to my side. To push back the ceiling and push back the feelings I had to the side. I replay them nights and right by my side. All I see is a sea of people that ride me. If they just knew what Scotty would do to jump out the stage and say I'm a child. That these are creative, became the most weighted. I got it.
Oh.
Keep me a smile. That shit wild, instead I'm a hero. I took it from zero, the flame you saying I'm ready for miles. The shit wasn't luck, they got me fucked up. I put you on bus and take you around. A couple of guys inside of the school, I gave them the tools.
Wow.
Get it off the ground, they say they're the ones when they make their ears can't look in the mirror. That shit wild. I stand on the stage, I give them the rage, I'm turning it down. Can't can't found, we doing the streets, we do it for keys, we do it for rights. I'm 52 weeks, this shit ain't for pleasure, I'm coming to tweak. This shit is forever, ain't infinity, no but hey, we write it and wrap it around. And take me a beat and I turn to a beast. Bought the crib on the hill, made it harder to reach. Bought a couple more wins cause I needed more speed. Bought a couple more watches, I needed more time. Didn't buy the condo, it was smarter than lease. And I bought some more ice cause I bought it and he made a cast on my dish. So she never go cheat. If I gave you a day in my life or a day in my eyes, don't blink.
Legs. That was sick. What?
Yeah,
Dude.
Huey does some pretty cool stuff.
That
Yeah,
shit
so,
was
like-
awesome.
So the thing about Huey's edits and I really like Huey. I'm good friends with Huey. I'm gonna be a little bit hard on him, and I think he'd appreciate it. The only Huey's edits, I consider them solid, and the reason I consider them solid is because they're very. I think there could be a little bit more to them. Now he has good creativity here. He's got a lot of fun stuff in it. It's a fun edit to watch, but like the shots you're seeing right now, these are the same shots you'd see like when he's actually taking the clips. And what I mean by that is like he needs a little bit more kind of like add a little bit color correction, put a little tint over it. Like it's very kind of like cut, if that makes sense. I think he needs a little bit more kind of personality in his edits. Even if like that's just having a little bit more effects in them as well, a little bit more unique effects, stepping out of the zone a little bit.
Mhm.
I think it just needs to have a little bit more creativity and uniqueness. Like even just fixing the colors a little bit, maybe adding some like cinematic bars on the top and bottom will just give it a little bit of a different feel.
Mhm.
They just feel kind of like when you're looking at the clips, they look good and all, but this is it came from the game into the software into the final video. I think they need just like a little bit of editing, give them a little more of a cool feel,
Mhm.
like just kind of the color correction stuff. And in that shot, he's got too much blur in the background. You can see there's starting to be a little bit more like circle shapes at the top there. I think that's too much blur.
Yep.
Um, like I mean, I really like Huey stuff because like they're nice. The setup is nice and fun. People are doing cool transfers. They were riding together. Those were kind of like really the only like critiques I have. I think he just needs to make it a little bit more unique, spice it up a little bit, just with some color correction or a little bit more effects or yeah, something like that. But like the quality is really good. Like the clip quality itself is really high. Huey's gotten really good at his like motion blur. His motion blur is nice and consistent. You can tell it's there, but it's not on Shep's level where you can kind of see that force field. Like his motion blur is like really good actually. I haven't watched this edit for a while, but like this right here, actually yeah, going into that corner, like there's no force field around it, but you can tell like there's a little bit of blur when the rider's moving. And like sometimes it's hard to get that like perfect. But yeah, he did a really good job at it. So yeah,
There's another clip, and I think it's when we're on Braden Carter, and oh, okay. I'll talk about that clip in a second. This clip right here is so sick. It's a simple, subtle camera technique where the camera is just rising, and you have two riders, and there's one thing that sim does that's better than bikes in every step of the way, and it's the net code and how the rider model reacts in air, especially when you're filming multiple people. So in bikes, filming multiple riders gets really tricky because at every single step of the way, whose ever replay file you saved will have the in-air mechanics, and everybody else in the shot always is on the ground. So it makes it really difficult to pull off something like this. But this shot is it's just so subtle. It's so neat. It's crystal clear. It's cut. Oh man, like it's beautiful from a standpoint of just looking at a shot. It's like, all right, there's not a whole lot going on. All we're seeing is unadulterated riding, but it's just a nice subtle camera movement. Well done. But where did I want to talk? Oh, I wanted to talk about the motion blur. I think it's here. Like, look at
that one.
This is
that insane. A little bit of a force field. There's a little bit of a force field, but it's not as noticeable. But it still like looks very good. It's not as noticeable as the Sheps one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because of that, like it's like it looks really good. Like because I use motion blur in all my edits, like I feel like I can pick apart the force field a little bit more than the average person can, just because I can see I just deal around it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, they look good for sure. It's not as noticeable as Shep, so if you can just get away from that, anything's really fine.
But yeah, like I just want to highlight this shot and like how cool it looks as far as like the depth of field setting and the motion blur and how tight the shot is. This is really well shot because everything is moving so fast, and he does a really good job of keeping the rider in focus and tracked. And man, like that was, so solid. Super solid job there, man.
like even right there's not really a whole lot of force field around the rider. Like that's kind of how it would look if you were filming with a real camera. And you had your shutter speed pretty low, and you just took a still image. It looked like that. The background's kind of moving. The rider's still like pretty well in focus. There's no force field around that. Like that's really impressive that you can get your motion blur to look just like that.
Yeah, no, that was really well shot. I love the song. I actually didn't hate the bike sounds all that much. They made sense.
I thought they were a little loud, but other than that, yeah, they're all right.
But there's like it's always better to see multiple riders because it just looks cooler. It's just more fun. It's more entertaining. And a lot of people I know on the bike side, just because of what I've said before, stray away from it because of how shitty it can look and how much time and effort goes into filming an edit with 2 riders. But no, this looked great. I loved the legs off at the end with the impact, like that.
Do you want a little context on it? So, so I don't know if you know or if people watch know. Both Braden Carter and Braden Thorpe are a little bit on the heavier scale. Carter used to be a little bit bigger. Now he's been working out a lot, so he's more kind of big as in muscle. But they used to kind of be. It's a reoccurring joke in the same community that they're both overweight. So if you each try to do it as an earthquake when they both landed, that's kind of the joke of that clip.
Oh, that's funny. I love it. But yeah, no, this was solid. I really enjoyed that. I definitely want to see more from him. Like that was really well shot, man. Like aside from I just kind of have to agree with you. Maybe like brighten it up just a shade, like with color correction. Oh, and the other mortal sin, dude, fucking outer glow drives me up the goddamn wall. I don't know what it is. Like, it's so bad. It's not 2004 anymore. Photoshop has been around for quite a while. We don't need to add outer glow to fucking anything that isn't a neon sign look. But yeah, I mean, it's all jokes. Huey, this was really solid. I want to see more from you. All right.
Huey, if you see this, keep making some edits. You've taken a long enough hiatus. Come back home.
All right, Mayhew's a really solid editor. He's more of like the Instabanger style of edits, so it's gonna be short and sweet. But this is Atlas SBR Lawrence Compound 4K.
Hey, what? This is the shit that my daddy had raised me on. Niggas got lit off the features I skated on. I gotta know how you get lit off the nigga you hating. The moments untouchable, they got the data wrong. This is the moment I know they been praying on. What? Try not to boy out, but fuck it, I'm staying on. Oh, keep on sending me slaps to go crazy on 40. Keep saying it's time to be patient. There's so many people, we turning the tables on. Capo got plans, but we'll say that for later on. Hush and keep saying they know that they played it wrong. Katie just text what the fuck are we waiting on? Damn. Me, I'm expressionless. Niggas be talking about don't shoot the messenger. 555, you get shot for way less than here. None of you pussies is blocking my blessings here. What? All these years throwing success in your face. All of these baddies obsessed with my face. All the shit they don't address in my face. I can't be showing no stress in my face. What? Yeah, no face.
Yeah, it was pretty good. That was a hard edit. That went pretty good. That went pretty hard.
I mean,
so
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like one thing that I will say is, like, this to me, it started off dope. Like, I love the black and white. Like, it adds a lot of suspense. And then he does a really good job of bringing it in. And like I said before, he's more of an Instabanger style of guy, so a lot of his edits are extremely short. And it leaves you wanting more. And he does a good job of taking that extra step and saying, like, hey, I bet if I cut this at 52 seconds, you're probably going to watch it again. I think his reshade settings are, for all intents and purposes, pretty dialed in. There might be a little too much blur in the depth of field, like this shot.
Yeah, I think there's a little too much blur. There's one clip where it's kind of following him over a jump where he's whipping. It's kind of following him from the back. I don't know if it's that clip or not. It might be. I think there's still a little too much blur. Go a little bit later in the edit. Yeah, it was that one. I think there's a little too much blur. You can just knock it down a little bit. It's not too like it hurts your eyes kind of looking at it or makes you cringe looking at it. But like knocking it down just a little bit wouldn't hurt. They could do for the better. There wasn't really like a whole lot I'd critique. One part, definitely the first clip where he's going off the face of the jump. Fade in your audio. It's the bike's just abrupt. Just fade in a little bit. Have it come in the clip before. Have it build up. Start quieter. Get louder. Every single edit I do, I fade in my audio. Every single one. There's not a clip, whether it's the start of the clip or the end of the clip, that just cuts. I will always fade it, no matter, even if I want the audio to start pretty soon. I always put like a little fade on it. I'll just make it shorter. Fade your audio in. it'll just sound so much better. Nothing will catch you off guard, be too abrupt. Just do a little fade, everything will be fine.
Yeah. But I will say this, he has bike sounds, and I have said this time and time again on the show, people that don't put bike sounds in dirt bike edits are doing themselves a disservice, and it drives me up the fucking wall. Like, I can't stand it. Like, it's dirt bikes, man. I want to hear it. I want to hear the bikes. Everybody wants to hear the bikes. Keep putting them in there. It's definitely worth it. Yeah, I didn't.
The only time, and this is more like in person, the only time I think you could get away with not putting in dirt bikes is if you're filming something that, like, you're using high-end cameras, it's so cinematic, and you have a song choice that you want people to immerse in the beauty of the footage and how good the film is, that they don't want you paying attention to the bike sounds. That's the only time I think you can get away with using no sound or too little sound. Other than that, sound is part of dirt bikes. People love the sound of dirt bikes. Now, I know for like Sim's a little different, where our sound is kind of more bad.
Yeah, it's tough.
But for sure in bikes edits, like, I don't think they'll ever really be able to get to the point where it's so cinematic and so high quality that you won't need sound. That you won't not need sound. I don't know if that's how I'm saying it rightly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree for sure. You do need some sound. You do need sound in motocross edits. It's just part of it. People like to hear the sounds of bikes.
100%. Yeah, other than that, like, film work was solid. I like,
sure.
the longer shots, the, coming in close, or, the variety with, like, tightness, wide angle. The kit's great. I love an all yellow Husky. Like, there's something about an all yellow Husky that's just so nasty. Yeah, no, this was solid. Good job, man. All right, moving on. Oh shit, Murray. All right. How the fuck? Hulskin?
Hulkinson. Wait, no. Yeah, Hulskin. Sorry, I got mixed up with someone else.
All right. Minute 8. I've got a sneaking suspicion I know what this edit's gonna look like.
Martin had a dream. Martin had a dream. Kendrick have a dream. All my life I want money and power. Respect my mind, no die from last child. I pray my dick get big as the Eiffel Tower, so I can fuck the world for 72 hours. Goddamn, I feel amazing. Damn, I'm in the matrix. My mind is living on cloud 9, and this 9 is never on vacation. Start up that Maserati and zoom, zoom, I'm racing. Popping pills in that lobby, and I pray they don't find her naked. And I pray you niggas is hating. Shooters go after Judas. Jesus Christ, if I live life on my knees, ain't no need to do this. Park it in front of looters. Next to the church is chicken. All you pussies that losers. All my niggas is winning, screaming all my life. I want money and power. Respect my mind, or die from less shot. I pray my dick get big as the Eiffel Tower, so I can fuck the world for 72 hours. Goddamn, I got bitches. Goddamn, I got bitches. Damn, I got bitches. Wifey, girlfriend, and mistress. All my life.
Got some rain there. Woo! I'm happy he can be in this video, so we can talk about his videos a little bit. Murray, I got a question because I know you're in chat. Did this guy ask you to just recreate the Cade edit on the other track on that compound? Because I definitely know, like, probably one of Murray's most famous edits was he did a Cade Matterly one on the other track of that compound, same song. There's actually, like, there's nothing wrong with that edit. It's just there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing's bad. All the clips are good. Things time well, looks good. It's just like a little like not super like exciting, if that makes sense. But we all have that. We all have that edit where maybe it's for a client we don't really know. It's on a track. It's maybe not the coolest, where you just can't do a whole lot. Don't want to do a whole lot. I have he's saying in chat it's boring. Okay, well, thank God you can say it, because it's not the most exciting. There's nothing wrong with it though. Like, it's a solid edit, but yeah, I have those edits too, where sometimes some edits look better than others. That's just what it comes down to. But yeah, it was nothing wrong with it. Looks good. Yeah. I'm kind of just repeating myself at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I've talked to a lot of guys in excuse me, the MX Bikes edits world, just in the last, I don't know, like couple of months, about rider features, and a name that gets brought up every single time. And is it Murray or Murray?
That's what I'm curious to know, because I've been saying Murray since I knew who this guy was.
Well, no matter, regardless if we're mispronouncing his name, every single time that I see a rider feature, especially when it comes to, gosh, I know he's got to have it. Like shots like this where it's super tight and it's usually over jumps. Like it's always brought up. So it's like a Murray style or a Murray style edit where you look at it and the footage is really tight and it's focused on the rider itself. It's not focused on the track. It's not focused on anything else. It's solely focused on the rider. And a lot of people, especially like short form content creators, they will really just, I feel like a lot of them just attribute, well, I don't know if they actually attribute to Murray, but they really should. Because it kind of sucks because once you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all. And I'm not saying this about Murray, but I'm saying it more of like the rider features that we see that are being pushed on the bike side. And it's just a style of filming where again, Murray said himself, like, this was boring. Like, there's really not a whole lot going on, but he does a good job of having variety throughout this entirety of this edit, whereas a lot of people on the bike side get it wrong. And every shot is this tight or, just a little bit further away. And it's really tough for me to actually, review that, because once I've seen one of them, I've seen them all. There's no variation. We don't get a whole lot of B-roll. The B-roll that we see is they wouldn't even start with a nice opening clip like this where you get to see a little bit of scenery. They would start with this, and they'll be like, kit, more kit, boom, into riding, and then edit fades out, and it's fine. And it is what it is. That's their style. That's what they want to produce. That's great. But one thing that I will say, Murray does a good job of including variety in his rider features, and I really don't have a whole lot of notes. I'm actually super excited to hopefully get him on the show here pretty quick, and actually sit down and talk to him, and honestly probably just feature rider features as like submissions and get his take on that, because he kind of, oh man, I don't want to say pioneered this style of filming for edits, but everybody that I've talked to in the edit side of things has always attributed Murray as the guy that does rider features.
Yeah, I'm happy you touched up on that, because now I can touch up on it. That Dr. Do edit, there were so many clips where it was just you're far away from the riders, and it just kind of took you out of it. You couldn't see what they were doing. They were too long. They copied his reshade. They might as well copy this, because his FOV on the rider is always what it needs to be. It's not too far away that you can't see it or lose interest.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the shots where it's close up and you can really focus on the rider itself. Just his where he puts his FOV at, it's never wrong. It's always right. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's what looks the best. This edit, yeah, maybe it's not the most exciting, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad about it. It's just there's nothing overly exciting. But that's just right. Some edits you have something that's super exciting, some you don't. That's what happens. I remember once when I made my sim movie, I had a guy that critiqued me for going all out on one edit and then not giving a damn about the other one, and I thought the other one was just as cool. So some people's perspective may change, but yeah, some edits just will be better than other edits. That's just how it is. Yeah. I mean, Murray's props to Murray. He definitely someone I had to kind of try to fight and be as good as when I was getting into it. But yeah, I think he's in IMX bikes. Him and C-Bigs are like the top two, and for sim, he's definitely up there as well. He hasn't made as much sim stuff recently, so when you're not making stuff consistently, it's sometimes hard to kind of find new shit to do. But his MX bikes thing is like I think they're the best because I think his clips are the best. I think in MX bikes his clips are far by the best. They're all linear, which is kind of how like sim is. Sim, it's really easy to make your clips linear. Your camera's gonna be like nice and consistently moving. Hard to do in bikes, and he does it in bikes. And like that's what I think the big difference is between his bikes edits and everybody else's bikes edits. Is it's more consistent. It's got more of that real look to it. C-Bigs is also at that level.
C-Bigs is insane. Like the shit that he accomplishes is absolutely nuts, and he does a really good job telling a story.
C-Bigs makes me jealous of like some of the really cool creative stuff you can do in bikes that you can't do in sim. Edits, I just want you to know I envy you because I wish I could make free ride edits, but there's no real tracks in sim that really allow for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Murray, dynamite. Love it. All right, moving on. 623. It's Qatar. Minute 13 seconds. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm out at Brooklyn. Now I'm down in Tribeca, right next to the Narrow. But I'll be hood forever. I'm the new Sinatra. And here, I can make it anywhere. Yeah, they love me everywhere. I used to cop in Harlem. All of my Dominicanos right there up on Broadway. Pulled me back to that McDonald's. Took it to my spot, 560 State Street. Catch me in the kitchen like a Simmons whipping pastry. Cruising down A Street, off-white Lexus. Driving so slow, but BK is from Texas. Me, I'm out that Bed-Stuy, home of that boy Biggie. Now I live on Billboard, and I brought my boys with me. Say what up to Tata, still sipping my top. Sitting courtside, Knicks give me high five. I be spiked out, I could trip a referee. Tell by my attitude that I most definitely from.
All right, we got some stuff we can work on, but it's actually like there's some positives to take away from this. Camera work does need some work with just like a linear kind of look to it, but he had some shots that I'm like, okay, if this guy just keeps making edits for a little bit longer, he's gonna get the hang of it. He's gonna understand it. Back to the starting where your first frame has an open picture, gotta blend it in, guys. Gotta get you into this video with a little fade or something. I don't know how I feel about the fading in and out at the start of the bike shots. I don't know. I think you could just do some hard cuts and maybe lower higher angles. Honestly, like I think just a little bit of the camera work needs to be just updated, improved, which is gonna happen when you make more edits. Like I look back at some of my first edits that I thought were really good, and they're not that good. It just happens. There's a few times where I think like the da of the part, it wasn't timed like correctly. It was timed maybe either a frame before, frame after. I think a few that clip right there of the long corner, he had too much blur in the background. There's a few angles. I think he needs to switch up some angles. I don't know how I feel about that scrub angle from the back. It doesn't. I mean, I like to go for a realistic look. I don't really know how realistic that shot was. And the only other thing I think I remember is I think for one of the whips at the beat drop, where it's like in New York. It kind of was a little bit late. Actually, that clip right there. If you go back just a few seconds. Yeah. So that one was, I think, was a little bit late, and then just go back like a few seconds, like 5 seconds. Clip before this one. Yeah. Actually, it's not as noticeable when I watched the second time, but when I first saw it, I thought when he did the beat drops, it actually skipped through the main part of the whip, so you
Yes.
kind of missed the most exciting part of the whip.
Yeah.
It's just it's one of those edits. It'll get better the more you work on it. It's just very beginner with some of the angles and just the camera work, and kind of like the pacing and effects and stuff. But if you just keep working on it, you'll get better at it eventually. You know.
Yeah, and
Everybody's got their starting point for sure.
yeah, and 623 is pretty new to this. He's got 16 subscribers. He's really only been doing this for a couple of weeks. One thing that I will say, fucking no goddamn FPS counter. Control F that shit, dude. Come the fuck on. Like, seriously.
I never even noticed that.
No, this will be probably the 5th week in a row where we've had people that submit edits to this show and it's fucking an FPS counter. Turn it off. That drove me nuts the entire edit, and like completely distracted me from watching the actual content of this. Where like I agree, and okay, so just for frame of reference, HOLTEZY, if people submit edits, they get looked at through a hypercritical lens because they are volunteering their work to be criticized. This shit right here is a fucking no-no. You might as well have trashed this entire thing and refilmed it before you export. Before you even start filming, you know that the FPS counter is there. Go and look. Do yourself that tiny little minute check. If you have to set a checklist of, are my camera settings right? Do I have my reshade on? Do I have my FPS counter off? Get it right, because if you don't and you submit your work to this show, I'm going to catch it immediately. Immediately, I'm going to see it. And even if it's the one that's like real small, when we go through it, I might not catch it on the first pass through. But this one where it's got the black or the, grayed out bar, I'm going to see that every single time. And that's what kind of sucked me out of this one. All right. Beyond that blatantly mortal sin to editing, I thought that, like you said, the camera work needs some work. But what I really want to focus on is the syncing. So syncing is something, what you're talking about as far as like lining it up to the beat drops. So syncing an edit to a song is imperative. Having this speed ramp where you miss the exciting part of like taking off of this, and then it's like in New York, and like we see that here, like it's like here that we hear that the chorus of that song come in. We should hear that like here, and then you start your speed ramp. That's when it's going to come in, and it's going to be solid, and it's going to make sense. Other than that, like the color correction, honestly, I like the tint. I like the kind of like warm sunsetty vibe to it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Like that was nice, especially like that the track is in Qatar, so it's in the Middle East. Like it actually fit the location. I think with a little bit of reshade, you can touch up to make it look better, make like the rider and stuff look a little bit more contrasted, a little more real. But yeah, the tint was cool. That was a good. I totally forgot to mention that. That was good. Good pick.
Yeah, I really thought that was, it fit really well with the song and the idea. Like it blended nicely. One thing that I will touch on, and so like you keep talking about reshade, and that's like your single source of color correction. And I will disagree in the fact that you can do a lot, like you can do so much color correction in post, but again, if you have your HDR settings or your reshade settings completely blown out and oversaturated, it's going to be really, really hard to do that in post. So having a lighter reshade setting as far as color correction and doing those fine-tuned tweaks in your post-production software is always going to be better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, if you have a setting dialed in on reshade, awesome. Use it, and you don't have to use any color correction. Dope. That's great. But for a lot of these guys that are just starting out, having a lighter reshade setting where you don't have so much HDR when you go to film, also, it's going to be less graphically intensive, especially if you're running hardware that isn't, up to snuff. But if you don't have hardware that's up to snuff, like, I don't want to dissuade anybody from making edits and being creative, because it's a really fun side of dirt bike video games that can be really cool. But you want your product to be quality. I'm not saying like you have to do it as soon as you start out, but after a certain point in time, when you get your film work and all of the glaring issues like FPS counters and other nonsense, like, get that out of the way and get the big speed bumps out of the way, and you start to find a flow, you start to find a workflow, especially in new software. Like, that's when you can start fine-tuning your actual process of filming, post-production, editing, and then exporting. Yeah, like, this isn't... I didn't hate this aside from the FPS counter. I always like a naked bike. I think it looks really cool. It adds a nice effect to it. The FMF kit from FXR looks great, like the Arma helmet. Yeah, man, keep it up. Keep working at it. All right, on to Carl Novak, Brunk V3. So I'm assuming that this is a multiple version portion of an edit.
Carl, you should know better. We're starting off with an image in our first frame. Okay, you should know better. Come on.
Fuck. I talk about yeah. Okay. Big dog shit. Walking this bitch, I'm a big dog. All the shades, I can see y'all. Look at that haters, they pissed off. Drinking so big, might knock our wrist off. And my wrist off. She waiting in line, ain't talking no Chris Rock. Touching her body, she taking her fit off. The money keep calling, so I just not hear y'all. I spent a 50, I'm pissed off. Forever, I'm feeling like Rick Ross. Fuck a bad bitch, get lost. I'ma pass it over, crisscross. This year making like 52 mil. Right with my boy, and he got a bill. Rick forever back, how do you feel? I'ma get a dog, put a collar on chill.
In the club throwing up dollar bills. Little baddie on time, let me kill. In her face, so I gotta be real. She see what she doing for pills. She saw the molly, she thrilled. Count the money, do that for the thrill. In my city, they drift for the thrill of it.
In my city, they kill for no reason. They broke killed a nigga for some pieces. She a bird, ain't talking no east. They work on my side, ain't talking no beef.
Honestly, I'm really critical of Carl's edits because he's been like editing for a long time. That's actually one of the better ones I've seen from what I remember. So good job, Carl. I don't think I've actually seen this one. So that was one of the better ones that I've seen from you. I think I know this track. I've ran on this track quite a bit, so I think it's a little dark. Whether that's your reshade or your color correction, whatever you do, it's a little dark. I think you need more depth of field in the background. Some shots you can definitely tell there's not really anything. So it kind of takes away a little bit of cinematic look. If it was probably any other of Carl's edits, I might have had more to say, but this was probably one of the better ones I think I've seen. So good job, Carl.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It's a little dark. We've seen a lot of people that have put out edits, at least on the bike side, that have been really dark. And, it's really tough because having for instance, like Swerd does a great job of setting this really dark, moody vibe. However, the way that he has his color correction and the way that it's the contrast that brings it out. And I feel like Carl missed the mark on this one, specifically with just how dark it is. One thing that he did right is the riders in the edit have white gear on. So what we'll see is riders will wear a dark colored kit and film on a very dark track. And that is when it gets really tough to bring that kind of dark woodsy vibe, sunsetty vibe to light. is not having a high enough contrast in your color correction, because there's a way to achieve that. I honestly don't know how to film like that. Like most of my stuff, that's all like that would be like a dark scene or a dark piece of footage. I try to bring it out with color correction, but it's really difficult. And Sword has absolutely nailed it, because his entire edits are usually a dark theme, but it's not a dark edit. Like it's very easy to see the contrast between the subject and the foreground and background. Other than that, I mean, the film work was, for all intents and purposes, great. I'm just kind of reiterating what you said, just a little bit more depth of field, and just try to get that, blur curve or blur intensity up just a shade more, especially if you're going to film on a dark track. Man, it's really tough to see. One opportunity that I think he missed, and it was a really cool effect, is this transition here where we see the paper. This is a great opportunity to have some sort of audio manipulation or sound effects or something. Like have a paper crumpling that would have made this transition just a shade better. And I saw it initially, I was like, oh, cool. And then I was like, oh, like it let me down just a shade. But other than that, like, it was fun. Again, like 2 riders in sim. It looks great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is one of his better ones. So good job, Carl.
All right, awesome.
Last one of the night. This feels like it's gone by super quickly.
Well, okay. So I will say this: there is a stipulation when you come on as a guest, and the only reason. Okay, so each week that I have a guest on, I mean, like this entire show is reviewing everybody else's work, and I feel like I would do myself a disservice and the community if I didn't have myself critiqued. So we will watch this one, and then we will go through and we will watch one of mine, and it is no holds bar. Be as hypercritical as you want. Like, do not feel like there will be no hurt feelings. But it is always worthwhile to have your stuff reviewed and critiqued by peers and other people inside the edit space, and that's the whole purpose of this show.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe after the stream's done, I'll get a little bit of your input on something I got in the works.
Absolutely. All right, Ethan, TEC Racing. I believe this is called Scar Tissue. Callum,
starting off again with the first frame. Come on, kids. We need to get to fade in.
Scar tissue that I wish you saw. Sarcastic Mr. Know-It-All. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you, 'cause with the birds I'll share. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. And with the birds I'll share this lonely view. And push me up against the wall. Young tuck girl in a push-up bra. I'm falling all over myself to lift your heart and taste your hill. 'Cause with the birds I share this lonely view. And with the birds I share this lonely view. And with the birds I share this lonely view.
All right, that was a good fade out. Ethan, I appreciate, or Callum, I appreciate your fade out. Okay, thank you for that. You definitely bumped up your score. You do got some things to work on. So, we need some work on the film making, the camera work. We're too close in some parts, and because that, it's really shaky when it's up close, and the whole rider isn't in the shot. I think we need to work with some settings as well, because there's a lot of clips where the rider just seems like, I don't really know how how bikes works, like its game, its netcode, stuff like that. There's a few clips though where I know there's one clip where he's going up Screw You, and the bike just kind of looks, it's this clip right here. Like when he's going uphill, the way it's kind of moving and stuff. Like I don't know if that's how bikes is supposed to work.
Yeah, it's tough.
I feel like it's tough. Okay, yeah, because some of the shots, it just it looked like there was some settings where it was kind of choppy, like the footage was choppy or it wasn't smooth or whatever. Whether that's like how you set up your, I mean, in some they're called demos. I don't know what it's called in bikes, but like the thing you go back into film if there's any settings you need to make sure that the bike looks like it's smooth. But I think the main issue is like we're really close and the filming is really really shaky, and that's almost with every clip. So that's something that we gotta kind of got to eliminate for the next edits.
Yeah, and that was really my big thing. First of all, I mean, I love the Chili Peppers, like super dope song, great song choice.
Honestly, it's a hard song to edit to. I had to do an edit once to Scar Tissue, and like it was hard to make it exciting because although it's a good song, it's maybe not the most exciting edit song. It's pretty tame. It's pretty mellow. So it is hard to make work to make it exciting. I have an edit to Scar Tissue I'm not even the biggest fan of because I didn't make it exciting enough.
Sorry, my dog was barking.
Don't worry about it.
Now he's in the garage because I didn't want everybody to hear that. Yeah, like it is a really tough song to actually put together. But I thought for all, like, Callum did a good job with like his pacing, his syncing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Yeah, the editing and how he laid his clips out they were very good.
One thing, okay, so especially with this song, I would say that, you know, maybe a little color correction would go a long way. Like, try to brighten it up just a little bit, you know, maybe add like a kind of a warmer tint to it, because it feels a little dark to me with the color correction, and not so much from a standpoint of like actual darkness, but it just felt like it should have been a little more bright, and I would have been a little bit happier. And a lot of that is Callum has not been editing for very long. Like he's still pretty green to this game. But yeah, you already touched on it. Just clean up that camera work just a shade more. Like, camera shake looks good when it's done properly, and tracking a rider, especially this close, like it's really tough to nail. So maybe, you know, take that opportunity to actually, like, you know, widen out some of your shots, pull away from the subject a little bit more, get a lot more information on screen in frame, and that'll help you as an editor, especially when you go to film stuff. Like, just achieve that more natural look to it, because when you try to track the rider when you're that tight, it gets almost next to impossible, especially moving that fast. It's tough, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked the song. I liked the pacing, the syncing, everything. Like it was solid.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's basically all I had to say too. So I got a question. Is it possible? So when I was gonna come on, there was one thing I had to get out to the whole MX Bikes edit community.
Oh, go for it.
Unfortunately, so can you actually go back to the first edit we watched, the Seawalk one? Unfortunately, we only have 2 people watching, so this is not going to get out to as many people as I would hope. I wanted this to be the word of advice that was heard around all of MX Bikes. Here, type Seawalk MXB, and maybe it'll come up. There you go. Yep. So go, and Murray, I hope you're here. Murray, you need to listen to this too, because in your last edit, I found you guilty of this. Can you go to 158? Okay. All right. This clip right here. Here, go back 5 seconds, and then we'll just restart this clip over again. I want this to be the piece of advice that has been heard around all of MX Bikes edits. Everybody, for the love of God, stop zooming in the game. Okay? This is the #1 thing I can't stand about MX Bikes edits. and I didn't see it a whole lot today, which I was so amazed of because usually I see it in almost every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Stop zooming in the game, because you'll have this. I see it so many times. You have this one shot, and the camera is at a certain distance. That shot right there was perfect. Okay, camera's at a certain distance. We're fine. But when you have a clip where the camera's at a certain distance, and then all of a sudden you do this exaggerated zoom.
A snap zoom, yeah.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It looks corny. You don't see that happen. You don't see this type of zoom happen. I am so surprised that it took me this long. Like, none of the edits really had that. I was going to wait to see if there was one that had that. But just stop. Please, everybody, stop. What I do, if I ever want to have a zoom, if I have a clip and I want it to be closer to the end, I pick a part where you can't see the zoom as much, whether that's the guy going through a corner so you can't really see when it starts, or start at the beginning of their clip, put 2 keyframes, make one smaller, put the other one at the other end, and make it bigger. Yeah, and it's a gradual zoom throughout the clip. We need to stop doing these way over exaggerated zooms, going up to the face of the jump for a whip. I see it in so many bikes edits, and it's the number one thing I can't stand. I'm ranting about it right now, but I have to, because I have to get the word out. Just zoom, like, pick. There's so many little times, like in Sim, when you're creating key cams, you can change your FOV for each key cam, so you can have it zoom in or zoom out. I very rarely do that. What I would always do is I just take the clip normally at a certain distance, and if I want it to zoom out, I'll zoom it out in the software. If I want it to zoom in, zoom it in the software. That, yeah, like Murray said, it's hard on bikes without keycams. I get it, but in the recent one you just did, I remember seeing it in one of the corners. You came out, and the guy, you did a little zoom. The guy came out of the corner, you did a zoom. And if you just did it in the software, maybe you don't zoom in as much. Maybe you want it to zoom in more, but I think it looks better if you don't. So I want that to be the message that is taken away from this interview or whatever. Please, everybody, spread the word. Stop doing the over exaggerated zooms. I can't take it when you don't see it when you're like in real edits, because it is so hard to zoom that quickly and maintain focus on an object. It's like nearly impossible. I shouldn't say that because I'm an amateur filmer, but you don't see that in real edits, and I see it far too much in MX Bikes edits over MX Sim, and it's probably because you have that triggered pull and you want to get close. So just stop, take a break, do it in the software, make it linear. Please. I hope everybody just takes that away. I want that to be the main talking point of this interview. Just stop it. Just stop. I hope everybody can just do it in their software. Please, and I can die happily. I can rest happily. When I'm 80 years old, I can know that nobody at MX Bikes is still doing that. So please, thank you for letting me rant.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'd have to agree. So the technique you're talking about is called a snap zoom, and it's used a lot. So snap zooms are used when you're filming for all intents and purposes, a static subject. From a static position, and it adds intensity to a very static shot. So it's not one of those things that should be utilized a lot. There's ways to achieve it, and I've seen good snap zooms where like the camera is super far away and you get a really exaggerated zoom into a subject that is very stationary or very static. But again, like, it's overused a lot where people are trying to get in close. I personally don't like them. Obviously don't have as much of a hatred for it as you do, but it is what it is. All right. Well, let it be known that HOLTEZY hates snap zooms. Don't do it. It's I'll just add that to my laundry list of mortal sins for editing. All right, so like I said, we're going to end the show off with reviewing a piece of my work, just so, you know, everybody feels like even people that do this at a high level still have room to improve. So this is one that I actually spent a lot of time on. I don't even know how much time I spent on it, but I had a lot of fun. This is where I kind of started to play around with After Effects and all sorts of other, you know, like even beyond just using an editing software. Like we're starting to talk about like the next level of editing and adding stuff that isn't in footage to footage and trying to make it real. So, and again, no holds bar. Be as critical as you want. No hard feelings, man. I will not feel bad about it.
Copy that.
All right.
Yes.
Yo, what the fuck is this guy's deal? Doesn't he know he's got a moto coming up?
And then rain is in the forecast Monday through Sunday of next week.
Bro, it always
every
fucking
single
rains
day.
here. I'm
That's
so
why I
fucking
said
sick and tired of this shit, man. Fuck.
Hey, that was cool. Yeah, that was really cool. I got a few things, but like the idea of that was just sick. From the start, you know, you had shots of a guy just shaking his head no and stuff like that. You know, it had more of like it's more than just your standard typical edit. I'll start from what I think can be worked on. I know when your guy was walking, the first clip, you know, where he shakes his head. I think we need to get a little bit of motion blur or something, because when he's shaking his head, right there, it's kind of like you need a little bit of blur so you can like when you're when you shake your head, nothing, you can't really, everything blurs a little bit. So just for that little bit more realism feel, get a little bit of blur on there. It's kind of, I feel like a little bit of motion blur should be added definitely for like the walking parts. It just gives it more of a realistic feel.
Okay.
One of the things, like, this is all opinion based, because like some people like this way, some people don't. I always like having clips start like either there's a few clips where there's a few seconds either before or after a clip where there's nothing in the shot. Personally, like I just like usually having a clip always filled with some space. Sometimes if you like start a clip with a guy in a shot and he ends and he's not like in the shot anymore, it's kind of a good like after feel, so I can understand that. But usually like at the start of the clip, pretty soon in the clip you should have a rider in the shot.
I think I know what you're talking about. Like this one held on a little
like,
long.
Yeah, that one was a little like long at the beginning. Yeah, just kind of things like that. I mean, some people's style, they like to have it leave a little bit long, so it's kind of like that aftertaste. Kind of like, you know, if someone's making food, they want a little bit of that aftertaste. Like, just kind of like that. It's all opinion. I think you need a little bit depth of field in the background, a little bit more. There's a few whip shots that were really cool, but I think if there was a little more blurry in the background, it'd have a little bit more cinematic feel to it.
Okay.
I think, you know, when the clouds are rolling over, that was a cool thing, by the way.
Oh, do you have any idea how fucking long this took, bro?
So how'd you do that? What was the process you did to get the clouds to move?
Okay, so I brought in 2 separate pieces of footage. I had this piece of footage here. I don't know who is messaging me at Teams at 9:00 at night, but no, I am not working. Okay, so what I did is I took this into After Effects, and basically this shot is a dolly. It's a pull-in dolly shot. So like you would set up a physical like camera dolly on the roof of this shed, and I had it hyperlapse, so I had 5 minutes of total footage on this actual Supercross track, and I had to hyperlapse that in game while also hyperlapse because this the speed of this. Oh, all right, hold on 1 second. Sorry. All right, I'm back.
Sorry about it.
I don't know who decides that they want to message me at 9:00 at night, but they need to stop. So I had to rotozip the entire background of this in After Effects while that shot is pulling in. Take this footage, put it behind that, then take the reverse flip of this footage as an overlay to get the shadows, because this doesn't exist in MX bikes like that. The clouds don't. Like it's a static image. Lay that over the top and scale it correctly, add perspective. Like it, dude, this took forever. And then because rotozip, like when you're using that in After Effects, it's kind of a pain in the ass, and with depth of field, like it really wasn't showing up all that great, so I had to add just a very small like blur mask across the entire horizon line of this to make this look as real as I possibly could for footage that is real versus a video game.
Can I give you a tip?
Sure.
Okay, can I share my screen? Is that all right if I show you?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I don't know how reshape works in bikes. No, I don't know if this is possible. But there is an effect, and I've used this because like I've definitely done some edits, some shots where I have the sky moving. There's an effect called chroma key, and it just makes the sky a green screen. I don't know if you knew that existed.
Did not have any idea.
Now, depending on the track, sometimes it works better than not. But usually, if I used to do sky stuff, I would use chroma key, and it makes the sky a green screen. And depending on like the look of the track, whether it's darker or not, I'd have it. I'd like put the sky in there, and then I'd either color correct. I either color correct the sky or the sky or the clip itself to kind of like look better, like make it look like they're kind of matching. It's in the same environment.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find like this one example from this one edit I did, where I used the sky to change.
Well, and there's just like while you're searching for that, there's one thing that I feel like a lot of people, because there's been a couple of folks that have tried to do edits in the rain, and they get so much of it wrong. Because when you film in the rain, it's never, especially slow-mo. So one thing that I really set out to do is have a subtle rain overlay that goes throughout the entirety of it. But when you have slow-mo shots, for instance, like this shot here, we'll just kind of watch through. Like you've got regular, one times motion, and then as it goes into slow-mo and speed ramps, you speed ramp the slow-mo rain to match your footage. And what people will do is they'll just throw the rain overlay the top and just leave it, regular speed. And that's not how rain looks like in slow-mo. So taking that extra step of detail, like it helps stand out. But again, I don't know.
I've never dealt with rain, never wanted to deal with rain. There's not really many tracks that have rain. But yeah, like the note I had, that's just if like, I don't know if that'll make it easier if you ever want to do a sky thing. Like I know for this edit, this is like one of the better kind of sky effects I did. Here, I'll go back a little bit. Yeah, it's like this was a while ago, but like just with that effect, it might make it easier, it might not. But if like, because it seemed like a really long process to do that sky effect.
Yeah, it was insanely long. Did not know chroma key was a thing. So I learned something today too. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. For the rest of the edit, I think that like the thing where your sky was moving, it might be easier now that you know this, but like if there's a way you could put a little bit of like maybe like blur, like if you edit with Premiere?
Yeah, I use Premiere.
Yeah. So like there's times where like if I do like a little time lapse like that, just so that like the rider has a little bit of blur when he's moving.
Sure.
What I do is like I'll right click the clip in Premiere. I'll hit speed duration.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll just change that mode to, I think it's frame blending.
Yep.
And it has a little bit of like of a
slight motion blur to it. Yeah.
Slight motion blur. Sometimes it could be a little bit too much, but I think just for this clip, like a little blur of the rider moving looks better than just no blur.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a little, I think it's a little too static, especially like for time lapse. Almost like anything time lapse will have like a little bit of a blur style effect to it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was. This is the first time that I've actually attempted like a hyperlapse in game, so that's I was kind of looking at it the same way. I'm like, man, it just really needs just a little bit more, but I had no idea what I was trying to do there.
Yeah, like I've done some hyperlapses, and I just change. I mean, I have a few like I have a few effect plugins from like stuff that's not made by Premiere that I use as well. So not all people have that access. But like so sometimes speed duration might seem a bit too much, but that's something you can use if you just ever want like that. All you have to do is right click. I don't know if you can actually like keep the speed the same or not. I usually just either make it 0.5 faster or 0.5 slower.
Sure.
Just so like it has to change something, like the clip's not, you know what I mean. The other thing, I think there was a few, so you said you're just kind of getting into like more effects and stuff.
Yeah, like After Effects and whatnot.
So you did some cool sound things. I think with the sound, I know you went over like this one double and you had this cool thunder and like thunder effect. I think just with like, you had some cool sound cues. You needed use some more effects. I think it's some more effects to kind of bring out the sound. Do you know what I mean? Like for example, that thunder happens and the song gets a little quieter. So you need to show that the song's getting quieter. On a project that I've been working on that I'll probably show you after this, I've really tried to focus on how sound and sound effects will shape the footage I'm looking at.
Sure.
So like even if you just like if you do a blur to like black and white or like a fade to black and white, put a little blur in it or like put some overlay of like little sparks or something, just like something that kind of shows that there's a sound change. I think that might help a little bit more.
Okay.
So that's like ever since I did a Vermodo edit contest, submission a while ago, and I got second in it, and it was so close to first. And one of the things that they graded me lower on than everything else was sound design, and I never really did any like sound design before that edit. So ever since then, I'm like, well, I was this close to winning. My sound designer sold it off, so now I'm trying to teach myself sound design and how to use sound design, how to make the edit more feel more into it, but also how you show that sound design, how you're gonna change the look of this clip with sound design, and how that's gonna transition. So I think just a few little things like that, because I'm working on that as well. I'm new to sound design, so I'm trying to think of how I'm gonna make it look really good. I think the last thing I noticed, there's a few I don't know if it's meant on purpose. There's a few whip clips where you whip out of frame, or you like the camera's moving upward and then it keeps moving upward and then you're out of frame. There's one I remember. I don't know if it was more the middle part. I think it was that one right there. Yeah. Kind of whip out of frame. Just was the point to capture the rain or?
Okay, so this is the I've harped on this.
I gotta understand that a lot of like the bike's camera system. I gotta think of that too, because in sim it's in my opinion it's much easier. So I gotta think about that as well.
My particular style of shooting is always a natural flow of camera movement. So the way that I set up my shots is I like to have what you have kind of described as a linear camera movement. So I set my camera motion before the rider, especially when I'm doing something as close up as like this whip shot or the one after this, as it's going to be a natural progression and not something that's going to be like trying to track the subject. I don't believe in tracking the subject being a primary source of, editing. There's times and places for it, but I truly think that a lot of editors leave that on the table when their entirety is focused solely on their subject and keeping that subject in the center of the shot. I use the rule of thirds, so if you were to divide it, the frame into 3 equal parts, both lateral and vertical, as long as your subject remains on one of those lines, it's not that big of a deal. So yes, for what you're talking about, like having the subject go out of frame, to me is not that big of a deal. I prefer shots like that, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That's all I had to say. Like, and when I've been harping on people for their first frame being like the edit, your first like your video started right away, but it started with a black, so it still had an intro. This little short of black is still your intro. So you did it properly. Some people just need to just move the whole edit back 2 seconds, and we don't have to deal with this. That's it. It's that simple. So yeah, you executed that well. Gave it a proper intro. I appreciate that.
And for what it's worth, like most of my edits, and like for instance, will start with a short duration of black, but then I have like it's almost like a stylistic choice at this. I have a film burn overlay. It's almost like an artist tag at this point, because I've used it so much and I just love the way that it looks. Like, I won't play this, but like it's a really nice way to bring in a piece of work where it's not just boom, rider. So even if it is a frame or 2 of black, I 100% agree. It always looks better.
It still is an intro. Like, like having the edit start through the 2 seconds later, so having that black is an intro. Like, that is considered an intro. You're not starting right away with the edit. Like, the only time you can get away with that is Instagram, because like if you're scrolling through Instagram, like, I mean, it looks different if you're scrolling. Then you have like it starts out black and then it goes. That's kind of the only time you can really get away. Like from me doing some Instagram reels and stuff. Like, it's hard because I'm so used to starting off and ending off an edit with a black screen.
Yeah.
Like on Instagram, you can get away with it just cutting at the end or just starting out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's the only really time. If you're going for an actual like proper YouTube made full screen 1080p edit, you gotta have an intro and an ending.
Hell yeah. Well, man, I think we're gonna end it there. We're gonna call it there. Thank you so much, HOLTEZY, dude. Like, you, like, again, I said it at the top of the show, like, you and your content got me into making edits for MX bikes and wanting to do it at a very high level. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. You've been nothing but helpful. I guarantee, anybody that watched tonight, I really hope that you take everything that we said. It's a subjective opinion. At the end of the day, we're just two dudes on the internet, and whether our feedback was good, bad, or indifferent, it's 100% subjective. It's what we like. It's what we enjoy. But everybody can benefit from feedback. So, yeah. Anyways, well, that's going to do it for episode 11 of the Weekly Review, an MX Bikes Edits podcast, where we go through and review your edits each week, submit our feedback, and try to make, just raise that bar just a little bit higher each week. This week we had HOLTEZY on. Next week we've got a special episode. We are going to be reviewing edits that are strictly cinematic trailers. We're only doing submissions next week. So if you haven't finished, or for probably most of the people that are going to submit, started your edit, I would get that done, because whether we have 3 or we have 10, that's all we're watching next week. But yeah, man, dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was I said before we started, let's keep it under 2 hours or an hour and a half, but that just flew by, and I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. I'm pretty thankful with what I'm able to create, and just hopefully just telling people what I think they can fix on. I think I'm happy that I can just take this knowledge that I know and just share it to other people so that they can get better. So I hope it all worked out. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Well, like I said, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for all of our viewers that stayed in chat and all the people that submitted edits. If you guys want to submit an edit for a review, we do review them each week. However, they have to be within, 7 days old. For the most part, I know we gave a little bit of grace for the sim community this week because there's just not a lot of content out there. But anyways, I'm Dylan, aka So-Called Designs. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Wish that we could waste time again. I wish that we could make time again. I got this feeling that you might go fuck it up, but I don't wanna stick around when you mess up. Can't hold you down, what's the problem? I'm fed up, wanting to be where you stayed. Somebody get me all the plot lines to this.